This is the 2017 Hyundai Ioniq Hybrid, the car that took on Toyota for the title of most fuel-efficient car without a plug, and won. With its combined estimate of 58 miles per gallon, it has effectively out-Priused the Prius. But I know what you're wondering right now. Is it any good? Well, there's only one way to find out. Now, the Ioniq name refers to three electrified vehicles that share the same hatchback body, but have slightly different powertrains. So you've got the Ioniq Electric, there's a plug-in hybrid version coming later this year, and there's the standard Ioniq Hybrid. Under the hood, you've got a 1.6-liter Atkinson cycle gasoline engine that's paired with a 32 kilowatt electric motor and a battery pack. Total system output stated at 139 horsepower and a pretty respectable 195 pound-feet of torque. Now here's where things get interesting. The Ioniq puts that power to the front wheels via a 6-speed dual-clutch transmission, which is different from the more conventional continuously variable transmission that we normally see in hybrids. That means that on the road, the Ioniq feels more like a conventional gasoline car. But before you get too excited about sporty aspirations, I will say that though we have a sport mode, we don't have paddle shifters, so you can't take advantage of the DCT in that capacity. Also, at really low speeds, like when you're creeping through stop-and-go traffic, it just feels like a very hesitant transmission, which is weird because that's an area where most electrified vehicles just tend to excel. At the blue trim level, the EPA estimates the Ioniq's good for 58 combined mpg, which is better than the previous hybrid king, the Toyota Prius Eco's 56 mile per gallon estimate. However, this isn't an Ioniq Blue. You see, the SEL and limited trim levels actually step down to 55 miles per gallon combined because they've got more equipment on board and thus are heavier vehicles. However, even then, we're still doing better than the non-Eco Prius's 52 mile per gallon estimate. So at least on paper, across the board, the Ioniq looks like the more efficient car. On the road, I'm averaging between 52 and 54 miles per gallon here, which is in line with the EPA's estimates, but I have to point out that when I tested the Prius with very similar driving conditions and very similar routes, I ended up averaging almost 60 miles per gallon when I tested it last. What does that tell you? Well, not a whole lot other than the fact that your mileage may vary, and it will, especially when you're dealing with hybrids. But mostly I think it just means that the Prius's powertrain is better lined up with my driving style and my driving habits. Now, every Ioniq features the same dashboard tech. It's a Hyundai BlueLink unit that features standard Android Auto and Apple CarPlay and all the features that we like to see at this price point. It's a very responsive head unit with crisply rendered graphics. We'll talk more about it in a different video, but I'll just say for now that mostly it stays out of its own way when being operated, and it stays out of my way while driving, and that's a high praise. Driver aid technology ranges from the very basic, like a standard backup camera, to optional features like blind spot monitoring, to the very advanced features like adaptive cruise control, automatic autonomous braking, and lane departure warnings. So, is the Ioniq good? Yeah. Is it better than the Prius? Is it a Prius killer? Probably not. But I think it's a more than worthy rival. Actually, I think, ironically, I preferred driving the Prius because on the road it felt like a more powerful vehicle. Plus, the way that it gives feedback means that it translated into better real-world fuel economy for me. However, I do really like this Ioniq, but for very different reasons. It's a less expensive car than the Prius. It's about as efficient. It's got much better dashboard tech that makes it easier to live with on a day-to-day basis. Plus, it just feels more like a regular car when you're driving it around. And I think that counts for a whole lot. After beating the Toyota Prius with its superior 58 miles per gallon EPA estimate, it's also looking like the Hyundai Ioniq's dashboard tech is better than Toyota's in every way, except for one. Let's take a closer look and I'll show you what they're working with. Now, the Ioniq's dashboard is based around Hyundai's BlueLink infotainment, and it comes in either 7 or 8-inch touchscreen flavors, depending on whether you have navigation or not. We have nav, so we have a bigger screen. And one of the great things about this system is that it is very quickly rendered and very easy to read. One of my favorite parts are these shortcut buttons along the bottom that allow you to very quickly jump to any part of the infotainment system without really having to reach very far. Here we have the Blue screen, which is where you'll find the Ionic's very limited connected car features. Once you pair your phone via Bluetooth, you'll be able to connect to the internet to do things like send vehicle diagnostics to a web portal or download Google Maps addresses from the internet. You can also view here driving information, things like your speed distribution and how you've been treating the accelerator and decelerator. Here's also where the Hyundai Ioniq system starts to fall apart compared to Toyota's. You don't get as much granular information here as you do in the Prius, things that would allow you to get better fuel economy. You also don't on this screen actually even get fuel economy information. For that, you have to pop back out to the home screen and go into the separate hybrid menu, and even then, the best you get is an EPA readout and a hybrid system monitor. You don't get any of the historical fuel economy information or driving coaches like you get on the Prius, things that would help you get that Toyota beating 58 miles per gallon you're looking for when you pick up the Ioniq Hybrid. However, one area it wins back points compared to the Prius is that it has Android Auto and Apple CarPlay standard. So you just plug into the USB port, and after a couple of seconds on the home screen, you'll have an icon that allows you to get access to Google Maps and all of your favorite streaming audio apps on your phone. So that's been your really close look at the 2017 Hyundai Ioniq dashboard tech. Take a look at our full review for even more details about this hybrid hatchback. The 2017 Hyundai Ioniq Hybrid starts at around $22,200 for the entry-level Blue model, which is also the most fuel-efficient one for those of you pinching pennies. However, this limited model trades a few MPGs for a bit of creature comfort and tops out the range at around $30,000 fully loaded.